finally got it figured out. So here's what it looks like when it's on. Pretty sweet. And one thing to notice, I put the lights on the side, put one on the bottom right here, and you can obviously see there is a little bit of an outline in there. I don't really care. I'm gonna let that one slide for now. And I did put a couple of them underneath this well right here. So there's one on this side and one on the other side. So those are underneath there, illuminating the bottom. I didn't put anything in the tail because it would be just too exposed back here. So I did put them inside here, which looks, I think, way cooler. Downsides, these LEDs are kind of clear, so they will reflect on the sides. If they had a little bit more angle, they would reflect light and not too much of this stuff. But you can see how clean this is. If it was a different colored bike, maybe it looked different, but you know, from a distance you really can't see too much. You just see the illumination. Get a little bit closer, you can kind of see the detail, but it's all good. But it looks really nice. Really, really happy with all that. Once you get on top of it, you can kind of see how much of the LEDs are there and that kind of jazz. But we did get this to work. So once we hit the brake, the whole bike basically turns red, which is pretty sweet. Underneath here and over there, looks pretty sweet. So I like the insides of that. Kind of a cool glow like that. And then we can also turn on the turn signals. So you can see that's working on that side. Everything over here. And then put it on this side. Now, this is something I want to warn you about when you're doing this. I had to take apart this thing a 15th time, which really sucked for me. But the reason that happened is because the battery went dead to the point where I had to charge it, and it started screwing with the brain, which is this guy right here. And that brain tells it to, you know, when the brakes are on, to turn it red and the turn signals. But it got so goofy and so low power that it actually tricked it, and it reversed the blinking. So I took it apart and had to redo it. And then once the battery was charged, I had to take it apart and redo it because it was right the first time. And let's check it. So we got okay. Great. It is not working. Why is it not working? Okay. What did I do? Shit. So just be aware of that. If you drain your battery, it can get confused. But that's about it. Hopefully this video helped you guys, decide if you want to do this. Let me go through some of the colors real quick. So this right here, just kind of change colors. It's kind of a teal. It's more of a whitish purple. It's blue. That's more of the white color. That's probably the color that I'm going to leave it on during the street because it goes with the rest of the bike. I might even go green, but it looks pretty good like that. And then all red looks pretty dope. It changes colors like that as well. So I'm pretty happy with the process. But I will tell you, this is not for the faint of heart. You're going to need a lot of tools. You know, everything from double-sided tape. You're going to need a soldering iron if you did what I did. You can see back here, if I take this off, let's get up underneath here. This off. So I just did this so it would be easy for me to access so it doesn't kill the battery. I put it where the tools essentially will go, this little button right here, so I can just turn that off and then it will not kill the battery. It's basically just a cutoff switch, but I had to extend that with my own wires, run it back through there and just extend it because the thing was only about 6 inches long. And if I had to keep it where it was going to keep it, probably because most motorcycles, the battery's underneath the seat, but my battery's over here. So there's no way to really tell which way you want to go, but the trickiest part of this bike was figuring out how to weave these wires. You're going to have to weave them all through this little section down here. and then down here, and then do the extension cables underneath this. The safest part, where the least amount of heat is going to be through here, because all the exhaust is back here. Don't want to run it up over the top because the piston head's over there. But you'd run it back through underneath this and then tie them off as much as you can. And then I would advise, don't ride your bike in the rain if they are exposed. I don't know how long these strips are going to hold up as far as the adhesion, but yeah, I'm just going to keep an eye on it, see how it goes, and hope for the best. But that's how this switch works. Just push it on. But yeah, you're going to need a lot of tools. So if you don't feel comfortable with this process, I wouldn't necessarily go crazy into this. Some bikes will be easier than others to be working on, but this is the 2013 1199 Panigale. It's not the S or anything else. It's not the R. But that's how we did. Groovy. All right, just to show you what I had to do to get the fairing off. Looks like we had a couple of points that we had to get to. This one right here is just loose from this part right here, but it looks like there's about 9 screws for 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. And then there's those, but then there's the one that actually right behind this area right here for the slider. This attaches is kind of a hidden one, so you have to get to that one. And then there's also 2. There's one which is kind of a safety, pop thing that just clips on there. That goes actually at the top, and the other one that is a screw. It's got kind of a more of a wide. You can see the difference between these right here. So they would be kind of attached. This wider one right here, the pop one kind of goes up in here. I think it actually goes through this little, it goes through that little guy right there. So be careful with this one. So you need like just a small screwdriver just to pop. You'll see a little groove in it. And then just take this one off. That'll expose all this. And as you can see, here's where the battery cover is. So I just need to take this cover off. This is a kind of a pain in the ass. It's not easy to get off. You're going to need kind of 2 tools to do this. You need a little tiny screwdriver, a little tiny baby one. I don't even know where that thing just went. But just a little tiny flathead. And where it's going to go is right here at the top of this. This is the brakes. And that's what I couldn't get to. This right here is the brain of the computer for the bike and everything like that. And I think what this was, these were the leads for the left and right turn signal. But I couldn't really reach the brake, and I saw this. This is just a little, I think this is where you just plug in to tune the bike. So it's kind of like a little controller that goes into this, so you can, change settings on the bike and all that kind of jazz. But I couldn't find there was a lead wire in here that was connected, and it did nothing. I unplugged it and it did nothing, so I don't know what it was for. But this is the light. So we would have to tap into this particular piece, and then I can tap in these for the rest of it. So you do have to take off this section right here as well. So this kind of clips in several different places. So there's a screw here. Well, actually, there's a pop-out top here, which is just like this one on the other side. A long-threaded screw here, long-threaded screw, and long-threaded screw, and then there's 2 more back here underneath it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws, and then 1 pop. That's where you need to access it. So from the right side, or it's actually the driver's position, left side fairing. This is where you can get access to this guy. So I'm not even going to bother to really take this one off. What I want to do is I want to put an LED in here in this particular chamber, and then I have some areas to feed some wires, but it's going to be a little tricky because I got to figure out how I'm going to get those wires down and through here, because they are not easy to get to. I wish I could access all of the stuff from the front because the battery's over there. If I could find the lead wires and the main stuff down over on the other side, it'd be easier. It's just to put all the junk right there and then throw it all that way. But I still got to get the leads for the LEDs up here anyway, so that's where we're at. But anyways, you do have to take that section off to be able to get to where the brake light is if you're going to be installing that. So just be aware you're going to need 2 tools. You're going to need something to grab the connector, which basically pushes it like this, and they make it nice and difficult by putting the other tab right here, so you have to kind of jam yourself. like this until you get it to kind of move, and you know, it's always got to be complicated, but it'll be worth it in the end, I hope. So I tapped into what looks like the red and white wire on this battery light, and I was able to get the lights turned on, but when I pull the light, it just blinks. So I'm holding it right now, and it's going back so that it does go to the red, but it doesn't stay illuminated red, which I don't know if it's supposed to do that or not, but when I put over to the yellow lead, it's very hard to make contact with these things for some reason. I don't know why. Now see that? That stays red, and then it goes back to that, but I don't know if it's just an intermittent contact. See, it just blinks. I mean, it's obviously the controller is doing what it's supposed to do because it's receiving the signal from that. It's doing it from the brake over here, but it's not staying red. Well, the good news is I hooked up the leads to the yellows instead of the blacks. Those are simple because there's nothing really to guess there. But you can see that works fine, and that works fine. So, and the brake lever, it still works, but it's clicking, and I don't know, maybe it's just got to be wired in completely. You know, so the whole thing is connected, so it's got that kind of thing. So it's really just a check. I just didn't want to cut into this wire specifically until I knew for absolute certain that that's the host. I can't see it any other way. I mean, this is the only one that actually triggers the brake light. The other one just kind of turns it on. So I think the other one's just a full on, and the other one is actually depressed. So what I did is I clipped in and just temporarily just the red and to the positive and the black to the negative. And then from out of here, the controller wires are, the yellows are for the left and right signals. And then those are really close to sitting on top of each other and touching. That's great. But I just got these temporarily wired just to see what would work. I know this is confusing because I got the wires all screwed up and everything like that, but essentially those are the two turn signals, and then this one right here is the brake wire. So that's the lead. So where you're going to need to connect that, this wire that's going to be going into that, so it's going to be a blue wire. If you use the actual blue connector, that'll go into the one with the red and white lead, if it's correct. Again, I have to test it by actually cutting into that wire and splicing it before I can actually prove it, but I do know that pulling on the brake handle does illuminate it. It just blinks. I don't know why it doesn't stay illuminated, but maybe it's just because it needs to be connected. Up here, pretty easy to access. All I had to do was just kind of figure out these were the yellow wires and the black wires, so that's the positive terminal. That's the negative. I just connected those in there. And then, boy, I tell you what, the hardest part about this whole thing, I guarantee you, is going to be figuring out how to get these wires in here, because there is no room. I don't see it. I don't know how the hell I'm going to do that. And I don't want those wires just hanging out on the fenders and stuff like that, or on the fairings, but I don't know how else I'm going to get them up there, but we'll figure it out. All right, so I solved it. So basically, I did have the theory of you have to have that red and white wire soldered into the main blue wire that's going to be for the brake cable, but it will only blink until this wire harness is fully on. As you can see, the running lights are just basically permanently on, but if we hit the brake light, see, we can get the brake light against the wall, but we can see that those change and stay illuminated red. So right now they're kind of green right now. So those work. Turn signal, and then they go back to green, brake, hit, and release. So that's how you have to have that. So the red and white wire is, if you have that on your Ducati, you'll have to probe around and figure it out, but if you have these, they do have to be fully in. But what the secret is if you can connect it and it does blink, like I showed you before, that's the correct wire, not the other one. So the other one will turn it permanently on, like these running lights, and that will not work the way you want it to work. So that's good news. So we at least know the system works. Now we just have to figure out how to get all those wires through here. This is a bit of a bummer. I want to show you this. It's not consistent on both sides, and I don't know why. One is substantially brighter, but you can really see the outline, which looks like absolute crap. And I would assume that probably because these were painted white, so you can kind of see through them. They're fairly transparent fenders, I guess. They're not really painted on the inside. I don't know how bad this is going to affect it, but I'm kind of worried that, I mean, it looks so rad from the other side. I mean, I'll just take this off for a second so you can see it. But from inside here, it looks wicked. You know, that looks fantastic, you know, with all the turn signals and everything like that that works. I mean, it looks really, really good that way. And that's what I want, but I don't want the whole side of the fender illuminating like that. And it's crazy because it doesn't do it here, it just does it on these pieces. So I'm wondering if I have to spray paint those things, which I really don't want to do, but if I did do that, I'd be able to at least isolate that. But what I'm concerned about, is it going to come through that? And if it does, I'm going to have to coat the inside of all of these things. So you can skip this step if you decide not to, you know, put the, if you don't have a white bike, you might not have that problem at all. I don't know how well they coat the other ones, but if you did want to put it inside here, for some reason these are pretty translucent, so just taped them all off. And so we're going to do both and just let them sit, do a second coat so make sure it's good, and then let them cure overnight, so we're not going to do anything more today. So this is the finished result of the plastic dip for the white for a barrier. We look right at the light, and that's a very bright light. It looks like it's doing a pretty good job of filtering the light. It doesn't look like it's very translucent at all. So I'm pretty happy with that result. Now I want to say a couple things about Plasti Dip. I've used this before, and it's kind of an odd product. Obviously, if you use it right, it will do what it will do properly. But you can see like even air bubbles and stuff like that, which is not going to affect it because it's on the inside. The benefits of this stuff is you can literally just peel it back off. So this is not a permanent, it's semi-permanent. It is a little bit hard to work with. Obviously the tape got, on contact with a couple of pieces. Where that's coming apart is really on the bottom of the fender, so I don't think it's really going to be in view. Where it was being problematic was up here, so it looks like it's done a good job of doing a full coat. I put like 3 or 4 different coats on there just to make it thick enough to make sure I didn't have to do it again. You can see some of this stuff still comes through, so it's thin enough for that. But make sure you do a very good taping job, so you don't want to get all that stuff in there. But I didn't want to use a primer or anything that was going to be kind of nasty or something like that, or hard to remove, just in case something failed or it just didn't work. I would rather be able to peel this stuff off. So Plasti Dip is actually going to be a pretty good option. Let's go see what it looks like to the LEDs. As you can see, still dealing with the illumination coming from the fairing being white. So I'm not going to paint all of these. Show you just how strong that light is. It's right there, and it's kind of goofy looking. It looks awesome from the front, but it's still illuminating right through the fairing. So what I kind of need to do, which is a simpler thing to do, which is what I did to fix the stuff in the back from illuminating like that, is I just basically took some gaff tape, which is this stuff right here. So it's just a roll of gaff tape, and it's kind of a fiber tape. It's got a lot of thread in it and stuff like that, so it works really well. It's got a good adhesive, but it's also not inherently sticky, so it doesn't leave a lot of residue like say duct tape would or electrical tape. So I'm just going to put it on the sides, down the edges, to just kind of eliminate the flashing effect. So it'll still have the light coming out of the front, which we can see here. Looks really good, but I just don't want it popping through the fairing. So see what I can do to get rid of that before I put it all together. But the longest part of this process is really just figuring out where to put the lights and why to put them in there. It's a little tricky to figure out, but it's coming along. And there's just a little tiny subtle, you can see it if you're looking for it. You can see that little band right there. Now, that's, from a distance, you're not really going to see it. Maybe at night, if somebody was really looking for it, they'd be like, oh, there's something there. that's better than it was because you could literally see through it before. But with the lights on, and you know, this is obviously not that dark, but from the sides, like when we put the brake on, you can't really see it. So I think there's enough light from back here. Turn on the turn signal again. And it just, oops, just kind of illuminates a little bit off the corner. But actually, even this right here is actually kind of showing through. You can see I'm blocking that. So this, you know, it could have used a little bit more paint or some kind of a barrier or something like that, but I just don't think somebody's going to care. So I think I've eliminated the major problem where you could really just kind of see it where it was obvious. None of these had the problems. So this right here, if you have a white bike, if you have it in Arctic white, and I just kind of pushed it up against this. This is actually holding it in place. This is just a loose wire that's just sitting here. I'll probably put something down there just to, you know, kind of hold it in place so it doesn't vibrate. But I didn't get a chance because you know, if I was to put the adhesion tape on there and then try to put this thing together, it'd be very difficult to do that. So this is actually, this piece of plastic that's sitting there, it's actually holding this in place. So hopefully it'll stay there, but it's just a little bit of finagling to get it to where I want it to be. But I mean, that looks great. I turn that off. Goes to that color, red. So that looks dope. So that looks good. I'm very happy with that. Turn this on, see what this looks like with the brake. Yeah, that's pretty wicked. So I'm very happy with that. So we'll tape those things down, put the seat on there. That'll look good. That's nice when it comes together. So that little C cut, just put that little button there. Boop. Light off. So that's your battery kill. So you have to kind of get the light kind of angled this way instead of flat up like this, because if it's reflecting off of that, it's going to illuminate this. But if it's actually twisted up against this and then kind of like turned into a C right here, you can get to aim way all the light way back there, which makes it look way cooler than that. It's a little messy right now, but I did find one more spot that I did want to put the lights through. Obviously, we got the light in this cavity right here, so it comes out of that little port. But I had to put some lights underneath this right here. I know it's exposed, but it's up underneath it, so you can't really see it. But the illumination on the actual fairing on the front is really wicked. It makes all the difference in the world, so it's not just middle of the bike. So I had to take the fairing off. There is a spot that you can run the wire through here, and it'll obviously be inside the fairing, so you can kind of wrap it around and do what you need to do. I was going to take it off and just drill a tiny little hole here and run it through there, which I don't like doing, but at the same point in time, there is access up there. The other cable that you're going to have to run through once you get the extension cable, the best way to run this is obviously take off the bottom of the fairing, and I did put 2 other additional lights up underneath this right here. It's like where the air intake is for the radiator, and it, you know, will illuminate down obviously for how that's working, but try to keep, because the muffler is going to be really super hot off of here. We're going to try to see if we can get these, you know, looped up and away from as much. I mean, you got a heat shield here and all that kind of jazz, but still, it's going to be pretty friggin' extreme heat. So I'm going to try to keep it as far away. Maybe put something over the top of it. Try to keep it from cooking. But once you route this to the side, I mean, you really have, you know, as much access as you need. There's one wire that's going to be up there that I just have to put an extension cable on to get on this side. It's for the right side blinker. And then that'll be that.